What is going on, everybody out there in the YouTube trucking community? Sean Cahalan, Christian Brother Trucker, coming at you again with another video today. And I know it's been a long time since I've posted videos. I don't post them very often. I kind of wait and think about some good topics and what to talk about and things like that. And today we're going to be talking about winter driving. So now that winter is officially here, and we've already had a really bad winter storm come through here just a couple days ago. If y'all haven't figured it out yet, winter is officially here, and it does get dangerous out there. So I'll give you some tips and tricks and what to look out for and some ways to avoid some of the potential downfalls of driving in the winter. I've been driving for about 7 years, and so throughout those 7 years I've ran into most of these problems that I'm going to talk about. So a lot of these issues I'm talking about firsthand experience, and I'll talk about each one, maybe one or two of them, some of the interesting stories that I have of running into issues where my truck wouldn't start, I was freezing my butt off, and had to call for help. So I'm going to talk about winter driving tips. When you're driving on ice and snow, you got to drive differently. You know, when you have a lot of traction, you can go around corners a lot faster than you can if the roads are wet or icy. And when you're driving on ice and snow and slush and things like that, you don't want to use jerky movements. So the first thing that I'll say about winter driving is you don't want to use jerky movements, and you don't want to apply your brakes hard or accelerate hard. These are called double momentum shifts. And so what that means is you don't want to be on your accelerator or have your cruise control on and turn your wheel to the left or to the right to change lanes while accelerating or while using the brakes. So like if you're going downhill and you're on the brakes, you don't want to go around a corner at the same time that you're using your brakes, because that creates a double momentum shift and the truck's going to want to keep going straight. So got to be aware of that. Anytime that you are doing two things at the same time, either changing the direction of the steering wheel and accelerating or decelerating at the same time, it will cause a skid. So that will cause you to go off the road. So keep in mind that when you're going to be changing a lane or anything like that, you want to let off your throttle a little bit and very gently move your way over to the left or to the right. And then once you are in that lane, then you can start slowly accelerating again. But you don't want to have your foot on the throttle and be accelerating at the same time you're coming around a vehicle. Will cause a skid. So the first obvious tip is to slow down. If the highway speed limit is 65 miles an hour and you've got snow and ice on the road, you want to slow way down, about 15-20 miles an hour, maybe even more depending on how slick things are. Allow 3 times the following and stopping distances. So if you normally would give yourself about 100 to 200 feet a following distance, you want to multiply that by 3. So yeah, if you're on ice, you need to increase your following distance by about 3 times your normal following distance. Now, if you normally always are right up on somebody's bumper, you're going to be at high risk for getting into an accident. So about 500 feet, 10 to 15 seconds behind anybody else. Just slow down and allow a lot of stopping distance and a lot of following distance, because it's going to take you a lot longer to slow down because you can't use your brakes as hard. As soon as you slam on your brakes, you're going to go into a skid. So I'm going to talk about some different things that you'll need to carry on the truck with you, and some things that will come up that you might not be thinking about out here in the wintertime. The first topic is anti-gel. Your diesel fuel will start to gel up, kind of like Jell-O. If anybody's ever made Jell-O, you basically, looks like Kool-Aid when you mix up the powder into the water, and then you pour it into a form and it's liquid. Well, then you put it in the fridge and the cold air makes it form into Jell-O. that's what your fuel does. At about 20 degrees, it starts to get cloudy and it starts to thicken up. And then if it does get cold enough, it will solidify just like jelly, just like Jello or jelly. So what you need to do is you need to be cognizant of where you're fueling and whether or not you are putting in treated fuel. If you fuel up down in Texas and you're going to go all the way up into Minneapolis, you're putting on non-treated fuel. You're going to need to add some anti-gel treatment to your truck if you're going to be going up into Minneapolis and you are going to be getting into 0 to -5 degrees in temperature changes. So that is going to require you to do a little bit of pre-trip planning, and you're going to want to know, where am I fueling up? What zone of the country am I in? Am I in Texas, Louisiana, Florida, California, anywhere along the South Corridor that may not be treating their fuel? And then as you go north, the further north you go, say like you get into Colorado, Kansas, and things like that, they're going to put a little bit of winter blend into the fuel, so it will be slightly treated, but you might need to add a little bit more if you continue to go north. Now, if you fuel up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Chicago, Illinois, Ohio, up in those northern territories, they're probably going to be treating the fuel down to about -5 to -10 degrees. So you might not need to add the fuel, but one thing you can double check is you can ask them while you're buying fuel at the fuel desk, ask them if they're running treated, winterized treated fuel or not. And that leads into one of my experiences where I fueled up in, I think it was somewhere in Kansas, and I was driving north up into Minneapolis, and when I got up into the north, it had dropped down to 10 below 0. And I thought that they started running winter blended diesel fuel, and I think it was in November or December, the very beginning of winter time, and I did not have blended fuel on the truck. So I shut down and cranked on my bunk heater, and my bunk heater stopped working. And then after that, my truck started up and it would idle, but it wouldn't, I'd go to put it under power and it wouldn't drive down the road, so I had to take it to a shop and have the tanks thawed out. So be aware of that. Know where you're fueling and know whether or not you're putting winter blended fuel on your truck. And there's a couple of different products that you can buy. You can buy the Diesel 911, you can buy Howe's Diesel Treat, you can buy, there's multiple different brands of diesel treatment out there. And on the bottle, it'll tell you how much it treats. So if you buy a bottle that treats 150 gallons and you're only putting 100 gallons on the truck, only put 2/3 of the bottle into your tanks and treat each tank separately. So to give you an example, if you know that you need to use 2/3 of the bottle, then you would put 1/3 on one side, 1/3 on the other side. So you want to put in the additive before you start putting the fuel in, so that when you put the fuel in, it blends and mixes as you're filling the tanks up. That is not super important. It will blend and mix as you're driving down the road from the fuel circulating through the fuel system, but it's usually best to put it in before you start adding the fuel into the tanks. Winter windshield fluid. All windshield washer fluid is not created equal. If you have not had this problem yet, you will if you do not change to a winter blended windshield washer fluid. You will go to wipe the salt off your windshield and you will not have any windshield washer fluid because it will be frozen solid inside your tank. The only way to get it out is to take the truck inside and thaw it out and drain that tank out and get the winter blended windshield washer fluid into your windshield wash. Most truck stops carry windshield wash that's good for about 15 below 0, but keep in mind, as you're driving down the road, it tends to be a little bit colder, and I don't think that they actually test it. I've had my windshield washer lines freeze up at 5 degrees, and it was supposed to be winter treated windshield washer fluid. So I try to find the stuff that's good till 25 degrees below zero. If you can't find it at the truck stops, you can usually find it at certain Walmarts, but that's going to depend on where you live. So if you're driving through an area, like if you're up in Illinois or you're up north, pick it up while you're up there and pick up 3 to 4 gallons so that you have it with you and you can put it on the truck as you need it. You don't want to have it and not be able to get it. You want to stock up when you can. Batteries. Batteries are another big thing. In the wintertime, the batteries do not perform as well. They will not hold as much of a charge, and they will start to become harder to start. The cells inside the batteries have water and sulfuric acid, and the lower the temperatures, the less those cells are able to hold a charge. So make sure that your batteries are testing good. Make sure that all your battery connections are tight, and just in case, carry jumper cables with you. If you do not have a set, buy a set of heavy duty jumper cables, and make sure that you have a set on the truck. So another thing that happened to me when it comes to batteries is I shut my truck off and I turned on my bunk heater, and I ran my bunk heater all night long, and I went to start the truck the next morning and it wouldn't start. I ran my batteries dead. Most of the trucks nowadays have a load shed cutoff where it'll shut down all electrical loads on the truck, so it will hold enough charge to crank the truck over. The truck that I'm in is currently having a couple of issues with that, so I will be getting my batteries tested as well. But if your truck is hard to start in the morning, get it looked at, or you will become stranded and you will not be able to start your truck in the morning when you need it to start. When not to shut your truck off. This is a big one, okay? Once the outside ambient temperature gets to be about 10 degrees or any colder than 10 degrees, once you start creeping down to zero, you don't want to shut your truck off. Even treated fuel, when it sits stagnant and it's 0 to 10 degrees below zero, your fuel can gel up and your batteries can freeze. So the best thing to do is when it gets down to about 0 degrees, you'll want to go ahead and let your truck idle. Even if you drive for a company that has anti-idle things set up on the truck, most trucks are set up to where they will continue to run at about 20 degrees or colder so that your truck won't leave you stranded. So if you're one of those guys that's like, oh, I have to shut my truck off so that I sleep better, trust me, you'll sleep better with the truck warm than with that truck not being able to start at 0 to 5 degrees below zero in the morning when you can't start your truck up and get going. Chains. If you run into the Northeast, the Northwest, or anywhere in between, some companies will let you carry chains, and if you carry chains, chains are to get you out of trouble. So what do I mean by that? Well, that means that if you're driving along and you start to go up Donner Pass, or you start to go up 4th of July Pass or Cabbage or any of these big mountain grades out there, and you check the weather and it looked clear, and you started going up the top and you find out they've got the chain laws going, and you're in the middle of this mountain grade, there's nowhere for you to shut down and park, right? So you're going to have to throw your chains to get yourself off that mountain pass down to the other side and get to a place where you can shut down and get off the road. Chains are not designed to be ran for long distances. Chains are not designed to be ran over, I think, 35. I've ran them up to like 45 miles an hour, but they're just not designed to hold up. And they are rough on your tires. They will chunk your tires. You will start losing chunks of rubber, because what they do is they spin and they chunk and they slide when you're driving down the road. Your inner axle diff locks. You have most trucks will have a differential lock, power divider lock, which will make it to where both your rear axles will turn at the same time. Those are for low speeds, under 35 miles an hour, and are not supposed to be left on, and they are not to be ran at highway speeds. Neither are chains. The reason why is because internally inside your gear set and your transmission and all of that, you're riding on these chains, and it's tough on your equipment. So you want to put the chains on, get yourself out of trouble, get yourself off the road, get yourself parked, take your chains off, and shut down and wait for the plows to come out and clear off the roads. I used to run Northwest Heavy Haul, and I was throwing chains probably twice a week. But that was for a specific job, a specific, region where I had to, it came with the job. But yeah, I would throw the chains on to get up over the hill, and then I'd have to stop, take them off, put them away, and truck on. But if it did get bad enough, if you have to drive 35 miles an hour for half the day, you might as well not even be on the road anyway, right? So, yeah, if it's blizzarding out and it's just coming down faster than they can clear it off, just get off the road and be safe, do the right thing. So, that's about all I've got for winter driving tips. When it gets cold, you also want to make sure that you carry plenty of food and water for emergency situations. If you have to pull off the road and park somewhere other than a truck stop, sometimes you can be on a state highway and they can have a road closure, a road gate down, and you can't go anywhere. You have to pull over right there on the side of the road. And always keep your tanks more than halfway full if you can. This will make it to where not only will it reduce your chances of the fuel gelling up when you have full tanks of fuel, but also don't shut your truck off. Once you shut your truck off, the fuel starts to cool down. Your fuel, when it's circulating, has less of a chance to become gel, and it also just keeps everything nice and warm. So carry plenty of warm clothes, plenty of water, and some emergency food rations in case you get stuck out in the middle of nowhere and you have nowhere to go. And always be safe. Always, communicate with your fleet managers and companies that you drive for. And, don't get stranded out there and break down and end up dying because you're not communicating with somebody. It is possible for people to freeze to death in their trucks. So just be safe out there, and hopefully these tips help you to be safer on the road. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and share. And as always, God bless you. Thanks for watching.